going, cousins? You already know what time it is. Animated horror stories. Animated horror stories. Mm-mm-mm. What are we doing today? We are at SSG Animation's house. What are we watching? Two true horror stories animated based on children's drawings. I'm excited for this one, even though it's only two stories. I'm excited for it. Why? Because kids are creepy as hell. We know this. We know this, and we say this time and time again because kids are some creepy ass characters, right? Yeah. So let's get up into it. As always, please go over to SSG Animation's house. Go over there, subscribe to their channel, watch some videos. Make sure you like every video that you watch. Okay? And then feel free to come back home, subscribe over here, like every video that you watch over here as well. And that's just you doing your part. That's just a little support. We're not asking for no money. We ain't asking for no shares. We just want you to like and subscribe. That's all. So let's get up in here. Please grab a blunt, grab a bottle of water, grab a bag of chips, and grab a blanket, please. To be snug, right? Kids are so creepy, y'all. I am so excited because kids is buggers. Some little crazy little buggers.
Being a social worker means I get to work with people from all facets of life. Be it homeless, the sick, the poor, sometimes even kids, or the rich and elite who fund my no-profit to save taxes. For the past 20 years, I have been running my own nonprofit organization that helps the needy to live a better life. However, for the past 4 years, my organization also helps to save and rehabilitate trafficked kids and women. It's truly disturbing how cruel people can be towards others of their own kind.
What's the second story?
Every year since, hundreds of kids and women come and stay in my organization. Some for a long time, while others till their families or guardians came to get them. Last week, a little boy named Marcus arrived at my organization. As a protocol, each person who arrives at my NGO for any kind of help is required to fill out some documentation and go through a medical examination to determine if they are healthy. As many of the kids are still very young, like Marcus, our staff fill these forms on their behalf. When Marcus arrived along with a couple of other kids, I knew that the children were saved by the cops from a trafficking ring. They had been kidnapped from their homes, school, playgrounds, grocery stores, etc., and were trafficked. It's sad, but the stats say that every year, more and more women and kids are sold into the flesh trade worldwide. And helping these kids and women to get back on their feet and return to their life is what we do at my NGO. Marcus was one of them, and although all the kids were pretty scared and shaken from the trauma they experienced, Marcus seems weirdly immune to it all. When it was his turn to answer my questions to fill out the form, I got to learn a lot about this kid. Hey, buddy, you're next. Would you mind coming in with me? I went to the lobby outside of my office and called Marcus inside for his documentation. Without even looking at me, he followed me inside. He sure wasn't older than 5, so I had to help him sit on the chair. Is your name Marcus? I asked. Without lifting his head, he just nodded his reply. How old are you, Marcus? I asked again, even though deep down, I knew he would be around 7 or 8. 5, he said. I was a little shocked because he was too little to be 5. What is your surname, buddy? This time he looked at me and I saw a sad, haunting expression on his face.
They already know.
Marcus Miller, he said. From the way he spoke, it seemed that he was 7, even though his size said otherwise. Hey, Marcus, would you mind telling me more about your parents and family?
Actually,
I always try a friendly approach and ask kids about their families in a very casual manner. Most of the kids who had happy families before being trafficked started talking about them. But Marcus just stared at me with his big hazed eyes.
Look at him.
Marcus, Please tell me about your mom and dad. This time, I was gentler with the boy because I sensed something was off. My dad sold me to a bad man for money, and my mom drinks too much. So, she is always lost in her own world. The boy replied in a timid and sad voice. I was shocked to know that this boy was sold to the traffickers by his own father for some cash. But before I could reply or react, Marcus continued. My dad took me out of school when I was in the 1st grade because we couldn't afford it. My mom is a stay-at-home mom and is drunk all the time. My dad does some work occasionally because we don't have much money. I felt like my heart was ripped out of my chest after listening to his words. Where do your parents live, Marcus? Something snapped inside him, and his dull and sad demeanor changed to panic in an instant. Please don't look for them. Please. I don't want to go back home.
Want to arrest them.
That was a shocking thing to hear again, because all of these rescued kids always wanted to go back to their mommy and daddy. Do you not want to go back home? No.
You want to go home.
He frantically shook his head. Did something happen? You can tell me. It's safe here.
He just told you.
My dad hit me, and so did my mom. They never loved me. They always fought about money and cursed at me. They do not want me or love me. Can I stay here, please?
You can stay here forever.
It was a tough call to make, but I decided not to look for his parents and let him stay here. The good part, he wasn't physically harmed and was a healthy kid. A little small for his age, but I was sure he would grow with some love and care. But I still decided to keep an eye on him, to make sure he was okay and didn't show any signs of any kind of trauma. Turns out, Marcus loved to draw most of the time. Unlike other kids who love to play and watch TV, Marcus just sat in a corner and drew. On one such evening, I sat beside him to see how he was doing. What are you drawing, Marcus? He looked at me and passed me his drawing sheet. On that sheet was a drawing of a woman. Marcus had drawn the face of the woman and her body. The woman was very disfigured, but I ignored it because most of the kids' drawings are weird and disfigured. But instead of using colors, he had drawn the woman in all black. Why don't you use any other colors? I asked him. And who is this woman? He looked at me with those big eyes for a while.
She is the one that took me.
Took you? For a second, I didn't know what he meant. But then I understood who the woman was. It was the one who bought him from his father.
She used to watch me,
he further added. I had no idea what to say or do. So instead, I decided to check out his other drawings, and sure enough, all his other drawings were of the same woman, drawn in black. It was so disturbing holding his sketches in hand and not knowing what to do. So I decided to dig in a bit more. Do you know where this woman is now?
No,
he said.
But she still watches me.
What? Marcus just pointed towards the open window. And I saw a shadow of a woman walking away. I ran towards the window and peeked out, but there was no one there. I looked back at Marcus, and he was still drawing the same woman.
And then I gotta remove you because you ain't.
Now, with the drawing of that woman in my hand and the knowledge that the child traffickers are keeping an eye on my NGO and all the kids I save, I feel very scared and worried for the safety of these kids.
As you should.
I feel so confused and lost that I don't know what I should do. Call the cops to warn the authorities? Or was the shadow of the woman a figment of my imagination?
That pissed me off. Why would you be imagining some creepy bitch? She ain't got nothing to do with you.
The next story is a dramatization of a true story that almost ruined the life of Ada, a victim of domestic abuse. In this video, a neighbor managed to capture a moment of Ada's fight with her partner. What no one could have anticipated at the time was that this was only the prelude to something much worse. I don't know how many of you have a child, but those of you who do know that you would give everything for them. But what can you do when you can't help but lose them? How do you live if you know that, intentional or not, it's your fault that something so terrible happened. My name is Ada. And this is the story of how a nice vacation in a 5-star hotel turned into the most terrifying night of my life.
Hey, Ada.
Anyway, I must admit that things between Greg and I were not very good. Greg and I had been a couple for several years, and he was not the father of my son Robbie. His father had died in a car accident many years before, and it was hard for us to move on after that. But we did. Gregory started as a good man. He was on good terms with my son and seemed to be always looking out for what I needed.
Okay.
Everything was going well, but over time, things started to change. Greg became more and more jealous. At first, I couldn't go out with my male friends. After a while, I couldn't go out with my female friends either, because according to him, they were a bad influence.
Yeah.
Little by little, I started to distance
You see
myself
that's
from
little,
all the people who cared.
You see that's a little sign right there. He's trying to isolate you, keep you by yourself. Women and men, y'all need to keep sight of this because people do that. They get in relationships and they try to take you away from people, try to isolate you. He over here hollering at this girl. What you hollering at her for? You was just cool at the beginning of the relationship. Now you acting shady. People wait till they get close to you to show you their true colors. Y'all better watch.
After a while, I couldn't go out with my female friends either, because according to him, they were a bad influence. Little by little, I started to distance myself from all the people who cared about me, and I, without realizing it, allowed it. A few years later, things became more violent. Greg would hit me for almost any reason.
Oh no.
I thought about
not
leaving
his
him,
head.
but he would change his personality and apologize to me. This may seem strange, but I was very innocent, and since he was a good father to my son and didn't do anything to him, I forgave him, so I wouldn't take his father away from him.
Girl.
As you can
Girl,
imagine,
not that
things
baby
got
daddy.
worse and worse over time.
We knew.
Everything was going very badly lately, much worse than normal, so I decided to do something for the three of us to have a good time. I saved what money I could and invited us to take a little vacation to a 5-star hotel in paradise.
But
Robbie was very happy, but I could tell something was bothering Greg, and when we got to the hotel, he let me know loudly. Greg was furious that I had saved that money without telling him.
I can't
He complained that
take
I could
my
use that
money.
money for the house, and furious, he yelled at me and worried about what else I was hiding from him. Robbie and I started crying, and Greg stormed off to the bar.
Girl.
A few minutes
no.
later, a hotel security person approached me and asked me what had happened. He seemed genuinely concerned, and that gesture made me cry again. On impulse, I hugged him, and
Oh,
as I
Lord.
did so, I could see Greg in the distance looking at me, even more furious than before. I thought he was going to come and confront the guard, but instead,
Nope.
he just turned around in the hallway and went back to the bar, while I was sure he thought I hadn't seen him.
He's a drunk
That same
punk
night,
bitch is gonna
Greg,
sit there
without
and
telling
abuse
me,
you.
came to bed a few hours later. I didn't know whether to be happy or scared.
Scared.
I was just glad to have a relatively quiet night.
You need to have a
The next
weapon.
day, Greg pretended nothing had happened and took Robbie to the hotel pool. He had made friends with the neighbors, and they arranged for our 4 kids to play in the pool.
Okay.
Greg might be a very aggressive person with little patience, but with the people outside, he was really very charismatic.
'Cause he's a
So I wasn't
fraud.
surprised that he had already made friends. He told me to take a break from Robbie and come down to the pool when I was ready, to which I smiled and agreed.
Girl.
A few minutes later, someone knocked on the door. It was
The
the
guard?
security guard from the night before. The man only came in to ask me how I was doing from the day before and if everything was in order. That night, I didn't tell him what had happened, but it was obvious. Anyway, I didn't want to get him involved and told him everything was fine.
Okay.
The man was concerned and came to ask me without any self-interest. I could tell there were no ulterior motives, and that
Obviously.
reassured me. When the man left, the door rang again a few seconds later. Had he forgotten something? I went over to open the door, but it wasn't the security guard. It was Greg, and he was furious.
Ugh.
Greg! Without answering me, the huge man grabbed me by the neck and pulled me back. I had been through this many times before. I knew what
I'm
was
yelling
happening,
in our damn ear, Greg.
but something was different. I had never seen Gregory so furious. Something in his look terrified me. I saw him angry many times, but this time, his eyes were full of decision. His eyes were not filled with that explosive anger he always had. This was premeditated.
Right then or wait.
As he pulled a huge knife from his hands, the terrifying man kicked the bed with enormous force to corner me, and it fell on top of me. What was he doing with that knife? Did he want to kill me? Greg rushed at me with his arms outstretched and knife in hand, but I used the same bed he threw to corner me as a shield.
Period. Hide up
I
under
hid
there.
between the wall and the bed, straining so he couldn't pull the bed out. I could feel the sounds of the knife going through the bed to get me, but the knife was too small, and the tip of the knife barely pierced the bed. There was no way it could cut me.
Period.
In an act of desperation,
Oh,
Greg pushed even harder to pull the bed out, and when I saw that he was succeeding, I pushed the bed forward.
Period. Knock him down.
His strength, added to mine, caused the man to stagger and fall onto the bed, and I took advantage of this to open the door and escape.
Go.
As I ran, I heard Greg yelling at me. "Run, Ada, but you'll see that I can be much worse. I'll hurt you where it hurts." As I ran, I kept thinking about his words. Hurt me where it hurts.
Only thing that hurts
At that
you
very
is that
moment,
baby.
I stopped and my blood froze. Greg was going to do something to Robbie. I ran to the pool as fast as I could, but I didn't know where I was or how to get there. I stopped to ask several employees, and they pointed me in the right direction.
Okay.
Once I got downstairs, I entered the pool and heard a lot of screaming. It wasn't hard to tell where they were coming from.
Are you lying?
Next to our neighbors, who were frightened old men and a little boy, Greg was drowning Robbie.
Oh my God.
I lunged violently at the man who was trying to kill my son and held him long enough for Robbie to come up for air for even a second. But the man pushed me back and I hit the sink, hurting my hip.
Girl,
Filled with
fuck your
pain,
hip.
I tried to fight Gregory again, but there was no point. He was still choking my son with absolute
God.
ease. Out of nowhere, our rescue came. The security guard, along with 2 other employees, jumped into the pool and stopped Greg. One of the elders jumped into the fray and pulled Robbie out. Meanwhile, between the 3 men, they were barely able to stop furious Greg, but little by little, more and more people arrived to stop him.
Drown him. Drown his stupid ass.
Our attention was focused on Robbie, who was not breathing. After giving him unresponsive mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, the boy spit up water and began to cough weakly.
Ugh.
I breathed a sigh of relief. My
That's
son
ain't
was
no
safe.
fun. It's ridiculous.
Gregory was arrested for attempted murder, and by the time I got out of jail, I had a restraining order against him. My son and I grew up and matured over time.
Period.
I will never again put my son at risk by exposing him to someone like this. I know Greg will someday get out of prison and may not respect the restraining order. But when that happens, I will be prepared to confront him.
She had a shotgun. She said, try it again and watch me blast your back out. That was some shit there. That was some real shit there. First story, like I said, I've already seen it. It pissed me off because after that little boy told you that his parents sold him, why would she still be like, oh, you don't want us to find him? Why would I want you to find them if I just told you what I told you, ma'am? Are you not listening? This is your job, and you so damn hard-headed you don't listen? Don't piss me off. So she pissed me off. But that second one, that's why I didn't really want to skip this video, because I knew it was going to be juicy, so I let the first video ride out. I knew the second one was going to be juicy, and it was juicy. Because I feel like a lot of people do that. A lot of women get into relationships, and, the man be there for a while, and your mind help taking care of your kid. Man, that's your kid. You have to take care of that child. No matter if you're the person that you decide to create life with decides to be there or not, if you decide to keep that child, you have to take care of that child. So she over here, oh, he's a great father to a child, until he decided to go and try to drown your baby, because he knew that was the only thing that's your main focus. Like, she should have been left away when he started beating her. Oh, he hit me, but he's never hit my son. What does that mean? What does that mean? He's hit you. Please, 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 y'all put your well being first. I understand you be trying to, hold stuff together for a good family, but if y'all unhappy, if y'all arguing, that baby is stressed out. All right? Holland ain't gonna do nothing but make that baby not like Holland, not want to deal with none of that when they get older. What you do in your household reflects down to your kids and the way they move, and y'all just need to control that. Please be sure to like the video. Please comment. And until next time, I love y'all. Bye.